All right, hello and welcome everyone. I'm coming to you today, as you can see, from the command deck of the Executor, that is Darth Vader's command ship in the Star Wars films. It's a digital rendering of it, not the actual movie set. Um, for those of you that weren't in class today, I totally get it. The weather was frightful, to put it mildly, and stay tuned to the LSUE website for any news about class on Wednesday or Thursday. It's later Tuesday afternoon, and I am unsure what's going to be happening tomorrow. So, kind of the broad strokes, even if you were in class today, let me point out a couple of quick things with regard to the essay. I have moved the draft due date from Friday to Monday, just kind of trying to be proactive, as it were, in case we're not here tomorrow or another day. So that due date of Monday will stand for the draft of our definition essay. That also means I'll be moving the final, the revision will also be moved to the following Monday rather than Friday. Again, to accommodate the cancellation of classes this afternoon for the inclement weather, and to help accommodate those that could not be in class today because of the roads were particularly wet. All right then. So if you were in class, I think what I'm going to cover next is basically going to be a very quick recap. And for those of you that weren't here, I forgot to record things this morning, so I apologize. So I'm just going to go through a quick recap of what we did in class today. So go ahead and hit my share screen with you. The first thing we did is we talked about the Munchausen mystery essay. And kind of the first thing I wanted the class to do was to find and identify the thesis statement, which is a little more difficult than it would appear. Especially one might think that with this being a professional essay, it would have a very clear, obvious thesis statement. I think the overall suggestions we're looking at either paragraph 3, which I can agree with. I think the second sentence of paragraph 3 here really kind of sets a good thesis statement for this. Probably gonna get my highlight to work right. So that'd be that one. The other option, which I think is actually quite good as well, this is one that I kind of lean on, is that it's almost this last sentence, this one, which sounds to me just a bit more thesis-y than nearly anything else in this essay. Point being, when we talk about thesis statements, I think it's good for college writers, that's yourselves, to put the thesis statement at the in that first paragraph, but it can obviously come in anywhere, and it's good to have a strong, clearly identifiable thesis statement. Obviously, I would give this author, even though they're a professional and got paid a lot of money to write this piece, points off for having a slightly muddled thesis statement. One of the things I did point out very clearly in this essay was what the author does. I think what we have here is paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 are really the attention getters. They open up with like a grabber in paragraph 1 and really get your attention. And then in paragraph 2, they're really kind of laying out the stakes, like why should we care about this particular thing? And as I pointed out in class, they talk about a bunch of different financial figures here that people with Munchausen syndrome cost, somewhere between $4 and $40 million annually. And as I pointed out, I don't know anybody else's financial situation, but for me personally, $40 million and $4 million are both quite a bit of money. Also $10,000, which is listed here. Also, a lot of money. It's not, don't come back to work money, but it's definitely, a bit of money. And then I pointed out within paragraph 4, what the author is doing here is setting up a relationship of contrast. They're taking a more common term, in this case, hypochondria or hypochondriac, and they are defining Munchausen syndrome against it. It's a great rhetorical strategy if you're looking for kind of like body paragraph 1 material, utilizing that idea of taking your definition and defining it against a more common term that it is not, but that it is related to perhaps, or is in kind of like the same, maybe occupies some similar overlap on a Venn diagram. This is a good, kind of rhetorical strategy. And then, we talked a little bit more about the evidence and examples that the author provides. And then I really asked the classes to pay attention to paragraphs 7, 8, and 9. That's 7, 8, and 9, because it's here where I feel the author really gets down to the definition and the explanation, or at least an explanation for why this exists. And I just love the organizational strategy that this author uses. They provide an explanation from psychoanalysis. Then they provide an example from personality disorder. And then they provide a third explanation that comes from stress and stress triggers as a way to define the Munchausen by proxy syndrome, or as a way to explain why people do this. So let's take another look here. So those three rhetorical strategies, or excuse me, those three paragraphs kind of are great examples of what I think your body paragraphs should look like or could look like within your essay. Now, when I talk about this idea of like a first, a second, and a third, I do want you to think about things that I pointed out. Are they here? Things that I pointed out here on the definition example essay, or the definition instructions on my courses, where I've got your transitions hints. And again, I do want you to, I'm going to apologize for the font here, but if we look here, we've got addition words, one, or first, second, and thirdly, or first and second and another. Those are good transition words to lead off, or transitional phrases to lead off into your body paragraphs. You've also got for example, but I wouldn't want you to use for example for all three paragraphs. That would get redundant. So, you say, for example, this happens, and then another paragraph, you might start with, for instance, this. So again, think about those transitions, those transitional phrases that can help you move through your essay and guide your reader through your essay. Let me stop my screen share here for a brief moment. All right, sorry about that. I'm expecting a delivery, so I'm if I feel a bit distracted, it's because I think somebody may show up with a delivery if they feel like braving the storm here. So let's get back into where I was sharing my screen here with you. So again, utilize those transition hints and pay attention to that essay. Something else that I asked the class to look at today was, of course, the student essay, which is in chapter 12. I think this is actually quite good. And frankly, I think the student does a far better job of creating a thesis statement that's workable and actionable and followable and identifiable for their audience, where they talk about, this idea of the runner's high. Spoiler alert, I did ask everybody to go through the first couple paragraphs and identify the thesis statement. It was absolutely clear that it was here. I don't know why it's highlighting so wonky on here, but it's this self-satisfied yet almost indescribable ... And then again, they move into this idea of definition by negation or definition by contrast. What isn't this thing? And then they provide some personal examples of that feeling. So again, if you're writing about love, you might want to put forth a personal example of maybe your love for your parents, or like a moment where you did something that was, truly motivated by love for your parents. Move on to the next bit of evidence here, where they think about, why this sort of thing happens. Again, you don't have to do this. You can just provide 3 examples. But again, this is a nice strategy to consider the idea of, the causes of the feelings. And then finally, a little bit of a conclusion here. So again, it's still 5 paragraphs, and I want those 3 examples from you. When we consider the draft, please remember to stick a little more closely to the word limits on this essay. I said this in class, and I do mean it. I truly enjoyed reading your essays, even those that were way above the word limits. I thought that they were, by and large, quite compelling. But for this essay, let's stick to that 200 to 250 word rough draft, and we'll go plus or minus 10% on that. And then try to stick with 400 to 600 words on your final draft for this. Remember, we're looking at 5 paragraphs, which means I want an introduction, 3 paragraphs of examples following the point evidence or point example explanation model, and a conclusion. Now, I may have mentioned the writing burger in class previously, and I know I talked about it today. I was getting very hungry, but this is what I mean when I say a writing burger. It's a simple 5-paragraph essay, and I want you to visualize a hamburger, or you don't have to. It's right here on screen. You've got your bun, your top and your bottom bun, but they're both they're the same thing. You know, when they bake buns, they make them out of the same dough. They get baked the same, and then they're sliced open. The reason I like this kind of metaphor of them being, you know, hamburger buns is what it means. The same material. So the same ideas, your introduction, you're introducing your concept. At the end, in your conclusion, you're wrapping it up and you're telling me basically what you know, you're being very brief about what you educated me about your definition, what you told me about your definition. And they also kind of hold everything together. I mean, I've had bunless hamburgers before, but it needs a fork and a knife. So it's really not a hamburger at that point. It's, you know, something entirely different. They hold it together. They provide structure, foundation for your essay, and kind of like limits, if you will. Everything has to fit under it. And then it's your body paragraphs, that first example, that first piece of evidence, that second exemplar piece of evidence, that third exemplar piece of evidence, you know, 3 paragraphs. All the tasty, juicy, interesting, important bits are what those are, you know. So the introduction and conclusion are kind of, you know, formal, maybe functional, excuse me. And it's all the stuff in the middle that you really want to focus on. You know, I think, you know, the stuff that's more interesting. See, there was something else I wanted to say about the 5-paragraph essay. Oh yeah. I like to think of things in like word count form, especially if I'm writing and I have to hit between X words and Y words. So when you think about this, let's think about the fact that you might want to write your paragraph for your introduction. Maybe it's going to be 100 words. Maybe you aim 100 words for your conclusion. And then your other paragraphs here could be like, you know, 120, 120, and 120. So what do you have? You've got like 360, 460, 560. That puts you right in the middle of the word count. You don't have to adhere to that, but I think if you think in those ways, if you're one of those people that struggles with writing, you know, kind of taking those small digestible chunks might be an easier way to go about this. It also provides balance, visual balance, and you know, probably rhetorical balance would be another way of putting it out. That way you don't have one paragraph that's like, you know, 30 words and one paragraph that's like 300 words. That smaller paragraph gets lost very, very easily, and maybe you don't even need it at that point if it's that small and undeveloped. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the hamburger essay. Let's move forward on our definition essays. We're aiming to keep the word count, and we are aiming to turn this in on Monday. You can, of course, utilize the prompts and definitions that are here. Go back a couple pages. I think they start on 266 in the book, 66 in the book. So you got these essay topics. These are all fine. I rather enjoy them. I really like the idea of using that piece of art from the subway. I think that's, you know, or any piece of art that can help you define a term, can be quite good. But yeah, all of these are, you know, 19 that don't involve art and 20 if you have the one here that involves art. Or again, you can define your own term. Remember, all the way back day 1 of class, I talked about defining success. That's a fine definition to put forward here. You can also look at things like love, heroism. I know they've got patriotism in here, but you know, heroism is good. You know, sportsmanship. You know, a lot of athletes across, you know, my 1101 or 10,001 classes. So, you know, maybe you want to think about sportsmanship, you know, or something along those lines. So if you have any questions, I should be available via email, you know, if we're not going to meet in class, which again, I'm not sure, you know, how that's going to happen or what's going on the rest of the week. I do know this is, you know, it's kind of wet here in Lafayette, and, you know, I think it was pretty damp in Eunice. So get at me with any questions that you have. Highlights, I've put off the draft and I'll be putting off the revision as well. have a look at those essays because I think they provide some really interesting things. And especially the student essay, the thesis statement that they write, I think is quite elegant and functional. And that's kind of basically the quick hit of what we went over in class today. Again, I'm sorry I didn't record it in real time, but this basically covers what we did. So thanks for paying attention. I look forward to seeing you all the next time we're all back on campus, and have yourselves a lovely day.